How's everyone doing today? My name is Terry White, Worldwide Design and Photography Evangelist for Adobe. It's my pleasure streaming to you guys today for the next couple of hours. We're just going to get a couple things set up. Hey, Star Crunch, good morning. Good morning, Victoria. So, since a lot of people watch this as a video on demand as well, let me explain what's going on for people that might be watching the replay. I also repurpose these on YouTube. So if you're watching this on YouTube, he's like, who's he talking to? This is a live stream, or at least it was, live on Tuesday the 5th at 10 a.m. Eastern Time on the Adobe channel, the Adobe Twitch channel, that is, twitch.tv/Adobe. My name is Terry White, Worldwide Design and Photography Evangelist for Adobe. For the next 2 hours, thereabouts, right around 2 hours, I will be going over various workflows in Lightroom and Photoshop, and every now and then mobile apps and web stuff and design stuff, just basically whatever I come up with, sometimes even on the fly, to work on projects either that I'm working on already personally or just to show people things that they're always asking me about. So today I've got at least 2 projects in mind. We'll start off with a little retouching from a creative portrait session that I did over the weekend, or over the holiday break, I should say. And then we're going to do some social media business cards. I'm going to show you the whole process of creating a business card from scratch. And the process will be the same whether you're using Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign. But we're going to do it in Photoshop since the template I'm going to use is a Photoshop template or an image template. And then if time permits, I'm going to show you one more thing. I'm not even going to tell you what it is because if time doesn't permit, then I'll save it for my next stream. I stream live here normally on Tuesdays and Fridays. Of course, today I'm streaming Tuesday the 5th. Unfortunately, I will not be streaming this Friday because I'll be on vacation / CES, the Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas. So I'm taking off after today to head over to Vegas and check out the CES show. I've never been to one. I've always wanted to go, and I decided this is the year I'm going, so 2016. So you'll see me every now and then, by the way. Stop what I'm saying, stop what I'm doing, look over at the chat, which I got it in 2 places right now, but I'm going to have it over here on my left. And I'm going to look at the chat, see if I'm missing anything, see if anyone's got questions on what I'm doing. Of course, if it's a question, I'll try to remember to repeat the question for those of you who are watching this as a video on demand or a replay. So let's see. Thanks for the relaxing voice comment. And any more hellos? All right, just looks like people chiming in, chatting with each other. So I'll get some hellos out of the way. Again, hello Victoria, hello Renee, hello Stress Test. Let's see, anything else I need to reply to? Just reading back, scrolling back. And let's see here. All right. Okay, I think I got caught up on everything. So let's go ahead and what am I doing right now? I'm saying hello right now. We're just getting started. So you just got here, literally the stream just started 5 minutes ago. So I just said all my hellos. I just said what we're going to be doing today, and that's what I'm doing right now. As far as what I'm going to be doing, it has to do with design, photography, and we're going to start off with a little retouching. All right. What am I going to do now? Okay, so apparently people were just getting here that missed all that a few minutes ago. So once again, we'll do one more reset, and then I'm going to jump in. Because if I keep telling you what I'm going to do, then I'll never get to what I'm doing. So one last time, my name is Terry White, Worldwide Design and Photography Evangelist for Adobe. Today we're going to be working on a little bit of portrait retouching, actually more creative retouching from a session I did over the weekend. We're going to create some social media business cards from scratch. I actually had this project that I wanted to do to create some new cards that I can give away at trade shows and give away just with all my social media on it. And if time permits, I have a third thing we'll do. I'm not going to tell you what that is, because if we run out of time, then you won't have missed anything. You wouldn't have said, oh, you said you were going to do that thing, and then we never did it. So that third thing, if we get to it, great. If we don't, I'll save it for my next stream. All right. So with all that, hello once again, and let's get to it. So let me move one window out of my way here. And let's go ahead and cut over. All right. Good morning, everyone. All right, so you should be able to see my screen now. I'm in Lightroom. We're going to head over to Photoshop in just a minute. This was one of those images I talked about from my creative session over the weekend. I had a new model, one I had never worked with before. Her name's Shauna. And Shauna came into the studio, and we did just some emotion, like poses and screaming and that kind of stuff. So this was the first one I did over the weekend. I added some stock elements to it. I didn't really do a lot of retouching on it. I just basically composited another image on top of it, and that was it. But the next one, one that I hadn't touched yet, we're going to go ahead and do. If I can find my mouse here, we're going to go ahead and work on this one right now. All right, so there's some things obviously that I'd want to take care of on this. One of the things that you run into, especially in modern day photography, whether it's male or female, you run into people that have tattoos. So you have to ask yourself, is that tattoo, if you're the photographer, ask yourself, is that tattoo adding value to your shot, or is it more of a distraction? So she's got this tattoo right on her shoulder here, right a little bit below her shoulder, it just says Gemini, and that's really not adding a lot to my shot. There's also something on the wrist, looks like some Roman numerals. That's got to go too. So those are a couple things right off the bat that would be more distracting for my photography than adding to it. Now, if it's a beautiful design, and that was the reason I photographed the person in the first place, they got some beautiful, gorgeous, intricate design tattoo, then obviously I would keep that. But little elements like this, butterflies and birds and wings and things like that, I tend to remove if they're not adding any value to the concept of what I was working on. As you can see, she's wearing from her eyes up gold makeup. So she was painted in gold in both on her forehead and her hair. Little gold streaks were painted in by the makeup artist. And so definitely we're going to keep that. And we're just going to there's some flyaway hairs that I want to take care of as well. And everything else looks pretty cool. And then we'll see if we're going to composite this into anything else as well. All right, so that's what we're going to start off on. Again, I'm going to head over here to the chat just to make sure I'm not missing anything other than some good mornings. Some people are saying that Twitch is freezing for them, and others are saying it's not freezing for you or me or whatever. Just adjust your quality settings. That could be it. All right. I don't think I've missed anything at this point, so let's get to it. So again, my shots in this particular case were shot tethered into Lightroom, so I had my cable connected to my camera as I was taking the shot, so the images ended up right in Lightroom. There were over 200 images to begin with, so there's one collection with the original or the narrowed down 202 images. The model was able to pick her favorites. Those are the ones that are flagged right now that we're going to work on, or at least a couple of them. And those are the ones ultimately that I'm going to deliver. I'm also going to upload one or two of these to my website so you guys can see that process. And then we'll start on the business card thing. And you might say, well, how are you picking which thing to work on first? And what I've learned about Twitch, especially my time slot, which is 10 a.m. Eastern, which is great, but 7 a.m. Pacific, a lot of people don't join into the stream till like 8 a.m. Pacific because it's just a little too early for them on the West Coast. So usually people start streaming, coming in in about an hour, and they're like, oh, what are you doing? And of course, we get some of this preliminary work out of the way, which is still good work. You learn something, hopefully, and then we jump into kind of what I call the main topic, which is really the business card. All right, but still have work to do. All right, so with that said, let's do my normal process here in Lightroom. Even if I know I'm going to Photoshop, which I know I'm going to Photoshop with this image, I tend to do some things in Lightroom right off the bat that are non-destructive, easily adjustable, so that when I head over to Photoshop, those things are already done. By the way, it's also better to do those things since you're working with the raw file anyway, to do as much of that work as you can and then go to Photoshop just to finish it. Let's see if we got a... what is good lighting? I never really understood that term. Good lighting, I guess, is lighting that's appealing to the subject. That's what good lighting is. In other words, bad lighting is when it's too harsh, too dark, not enough contrast. That would be bad lighting. Lots of hot spots, washed out. Those would be examples of bad lighting. So just think of good lighting as the subject is well lit and you like it. That's good lighting. Bad lighting would be all of the above, all the things I just mentioned. All right, good morning, Happy New Year. I know, Victoria, you hate shadows, but shadows could be a good thing if they're done well. So I don't consider shadows bad lighting unless the shadows are bad. And then that would be bad lighting. May I see the photo with the mask? May you see the photo with the mask? Sure, there's the photo with the mask. All right, and I may at some point, originally I was going to, the concept was I was going to take her, like a copy of her face and make it the mask so she's looking into her own face. I haven't quite figured out how I want to do that yet, so I may not do that on this particular stream. I may come back and do that on another one. All right, let's see if I missed anything else. Yeah, so again, someone's saying I like shadows, someone's saying they don't like shadows. By the way, photography in general is preference. No matter what picture it is, no matter what you do, no matter how great you think you did, there will always be someone that doesn't like it, someone didn't think it was that great, someone that doesn't like the way you lit it, someone that doesn't like the way you composed it, so forth and so on. So you have to ask yourself, are you shooting for all those people that don't like it, or are you shooting for yourself and your client, or your model, or your customer, or your landscape, or whatever? So photography is all about personal preferences. There are technical things that you can get right or wrong, but for the most part, even with technical things, there are rules that we can break, and it's still okay. It just depends on your personal preference. So I never expect everyone to like my photography. I never expect everyone to like any design I do, because everyone won't like anything, no matter what it is. So keep that in mind. You're going to see me do things in Photoshop now that people are going to say, oh, I would have done it the other way. And that's fine, because everyone has their way of doing things. Let's turn off notifications there. Okay, so keep that in mind. Everyone has their own opinion, and that's perfectly fine. Okay, hello. All right, so let's get to it. So I'm in the develop module now. And once I head over to the develop module, there are 2 or 3 things I do to every photo. One of which is I just add a little bit of sharpening right off the bat, because a lot of times I may not do the sharpening any other time, so I start with it. Lightroom's got a couple nice presets for sharpening. These are built in: Sharpen Faces, Sharpen Scenic. They're under the Lightroom General presets collection there, or folder. And basically the way you look at these 2 is, if it's a person, Sharpen Faces. If it's anything else, Sharpen Scenic. So Scenic doesn't have to be landscape. It could be a car. It could be a product shot. It could be anything. And that would apply a little bit more sharpening than it does for faces. It's a very little bit, in either case, a little amount of sharpening. The next thing I do is I head over to the histogram to check to make sure I don't have any any shadow clipping or blown out highlights. In this case, I don't. The lighting's pretty even. And then I head down the develop panels, and I look for white balance. The white balance on these shots is already pretty good, but I just do a quick check by clicking. If I had a gray card, clicking right on the gray card in the shot, or clicking on something that's around neutral gray or black or white. And in this case, that warmed it up a little bit just by clicking on the black. And if I didn't like it, then I can, of course, always adjust the temperature manually or the tint manually to whatever I want. Exposure, everything else looks good. I haven't met a shot yet that couldn't use a little bit more vibrance. I typically don't do saturation on people unless it is something very creative and not going to mess up the skin tones too badly. Okay, what do I do if I had some shadow and highlight clippings? So these would be white instead of gray or turned off. And in those cases, by the way, your histogram is an active set of controls. So you'll notice as you hover over each area, you get a little highlight in that area letting you know that you can make adjustments there. So had there been some highlights, let's create the problem. If I can. Okay, so I created the problem. I turned it on. So now I've blown out some highlights. First of all, you can, just because you have shadow clipping or highlights blown out doesn't necessarily mean they need to be fixed, because it really depends on where they are in the photo and if they're in a critical place or not. For example, if I take a shot of the sky and the sun's in the corner, I guarantee the sun's gonna give me a warning because there's no detail in the sun that we can see. So there's no amount of sliding or fixing that's going to bring detail into that spot. So that's what I mean. It depends on where the problem is. So once I introduce the problem just now, I can hover over the warning and notice in red, like right on her mouth, on her bottom lip, it turned red as I hover over that. That's letting me know there's no more detail in that spot. So if that's an important spot in the photo, then I want to fix it. If it's not an important spot in the photo, I don't care. So in this case, that is an important spot in the photo. I do care that there's no detail in that spot. So in this case, with the histogram, you notice that when you hover over it, you get a slider. You get this ability to slide the adjustment right under the highlight warning. So when I slide that over till it goes off, I've made that adjustment. If there was in the clipping in the shadows, I would slide that left or right until I make the adjustment to get rid of the warning. And now, when of course, hovering over those areas may show a little bit, but again, it's in such a insignificant part of the photo, it's not a problem. That's why the warning's not there anymore. Okay, next thing I like to do in my photos, and again, if you've ever watched any of my streams, he's going through, he's saying he's going through those same things he does every time, because I do these same things every time. I go to the point curve and I play around with these three presets to see if I like one better than the other. Linear is the default. I put it on medium, which is going to give me more contrast. So it's going to darken the background, going to lighten the highlights a little bit more. The only problem with this, especially when there's dark on dark hair on a dark background, is you start to lose some of it. So in this case, linear. I can see a little bit more of the edges of the hair versus medium, which the hair starts to blend in, which I'm okay with that in this photo. And strong would probably be too much. Maybe. Because again, this is a creative shot, so I might be a little bit more lenient for strong on this one. But I think medium is going to be the sweet spot on this photo. Not too much, not too little. And so I would keep it on that. It makes the background nice and dark and nice and solid black, which is another quick trick for if you had a little bit too much light on the background and you want to make an adjustment for that. All right. Okay. Just checking for questions here. All right. Looks like the moderators have caught up on the questions here. All right, so here we go. So now that I've made those adjustments, and again, I can keep making more adjustments. Sometimes I'll do a crop if I need to crop the image while I'm here, or any other adjustments that can be made in Lightroom. Now, this question gets asked all the time, especially people that are new to Lightroom or new to Photoshop. Do I need one or the other? Like, in other words, do I need Photoshop? Well, that depends. If you think for the kind of photography you do that you can get everything done in Lightroom, then no, you don't need Photoshop. But if you need to do more than what Lightroom can do to an image, then yes, you may need Photoshop. So could I now go in and take care of some of the other things with the photo? Sure, I could probably do those right here in Lightroom. But could I do them as effectively, as fast, and do more in Photoshop? Probably more in Photoshop. So it just depends on what you need to do. For most landscape photographers, you can probably get by with just Lightroom for the most things you do. For portrait photographers, you're probably going to want to use Photoshop for a lot of things because you could just do more. For people that are doing compositing, special effects work, you definitely want Photoshop because Lightroom has no compositing features. So it just really depends. When people ask me that question, it's on you. It depends on what you do. So there are some things that, could I finish this one in Lightroom? Yeah, probably. But I know I can do more in Photoshop, so I'm just going to go ahead and head to Photoshop with it. Now, to get to Photoshop, I normally do it from the keyboard. So I'm going to say Edit in Adobe Photoshop CC. From the contextual menu, I just right-clicked on the thumbnail. That will, I'm working with a beta of something, but that will just go ahead and open it up in Photoshop. And since I'm starting with a raw file, notice it didn't say, hey, do you want to work with the original or a copy? Because when you're working with raw files, you're not working with an original. You're always making a copy when you head to Photoshop because you don't edit the pixels of a raw file. So that's why it gave me no choice. It just took me right over here and let me do what I wanted to do. All right, so now I'm in Photoshop, and if I do one thing and hit save, it's going to save it back to Lightroom as a new file, and the default is a TIFF. I've set my preference in Lightroom to save it back as a PSD or a Photoshop document. Why? Personal preference. I just like PSDs over TIFFs. All right. Next, let's see where we want. And okay, so now again, I get this question all the time, and I've answered it a few times here on Twitch. Where do you start? Well, it depends. What do you mean it depends? Depends on whatever's standing out for you the most that you want to make an adjustment to or correct. So in my case, the tattoo that's cut off is standing out for me the most. That's got to go. And probably the one on the wrist as well. So those would be the areas I would start with. The stray hairs are bothering me too, but those are going to take a little bit more time. So you tend to start with whatever is distracting you the most, because if you go to work on something else, you're still distracted by the thing that's distracting you the most. So get all the distracting things out of the way until you don't have any more distracting things, and then you're done. All right. So in this case, what I want to do, just checking here. And hello, Netherlands, how are you? Glad you're looking at my tutorials. All right. Looks like we lost a participant in the chat that was becoming unruly, but that's okay. So let's zoom in on this area. Now, all I did was hit the letter Z. That brings up the zoom tool, and now, of course, in Photoshop, it zooms in real time. So I can just drag in this area of the photo. I can hold down the space bar, move it around, and get to this area. Now, normally I would take things away quickly with the healing brush, But I'm going to show you a technique I use with the patch tool that I think a lot of people don't quite get yet. So I'm going to show you some patch tool tips and tricks and failures and successes. Now, normally the patch tool defaults to normal, and there's the patch. Now, this may work perfectly. It may not. It depends, because every time Photoshop is updated, a lot of things in Photoshop are updated. So the team is constantly making the algorithm for the patch tool better. So in this example, I'm working with the latest version of Photoshop CC. They may have improved it to where I don't have the problem anymore. But let's see if I have it. And if not, if I do, I'll show you how to take care of it. So I have it on normal, which is normally going to give me a problem. I'm going to go ahead and just grab an area of the photo here. And I'm just going to go ahead and say, oh yeah, patch it to this area of the skin. And see, that's what I meant. They improved it so it works great. Sometimes you would have gotten like a little, at the very edge of the photo, it would have not known what to do, so it would have repeated itself. It would have left you with like a distortion at the bottom. And if that had been the case, the tip I would have given you, maybe even for an older version of Photoshop, I hate when it works perfectly the first time when I'm trying to teach something. Content aware will typically take care of that and do a better job, especially around edges, as opposed to the old normal. Or even if you have it on normal, one of the tips I would have done in the past, if I wanted to use normal, because normal blends it in better than content aware, I would drag along the edge. So I would do this. Just drag it along the edge so that it knows to use that consistent edge all the way across. So again, the reason I gave you that warning up front is because I know that the patch tool got improved in the latest update, which came out in December. So that's why I was like, oh no, did they fix the problem I used to teach people how to fix? And they did. All right, which is a good thing, because now you don't have to worry about it anymore. So while I'm here, I can see some other little things with the makeup. Kind of the gold is kind of flaking down there a little bit. Some little pimples and blemishes that no one's going to miss. And we'll go here. Little hairs that are sticking out. I'm using the spot healing tool, healing brush, healing tool. And now we're going to go to this thing. Now this is going to be a little bit more tricky because it's on different shades of skin. So there's a lighter version of it here, darker there. I could take them out one by one using the healing brush, or I could try and patch it. It just depends on whatever you think is going to work faster for you. So let's try the patch. I use the equation of it's like using the difference between using a roller or a paintbrush when you're painting your house or painting a wall. The roller is going to do a better, or not, the roller is going to do a faster job because you're going to cover a bigger area, but the brush is going to do a more detailed job. So it just depends on what you're trying to do. Of course, we don't want to make that vein or line distorted. So that's what I'm worried about, but let's try it. Let's see how good patching can be, or not. I'm going to try and keep it lined up. And not too bad. Okay. A little bit of a distortion there. So yeah, the patch tool's definitely got some improvements in December. This is really the first time since it got improved that I've done a portrait or done a retouch like this. So I can already tell, since I use this tool pretty much on a regular basis, pretty much daily, that it's gotten a lot better. All right. Okay, so now her eyes are closed extremely tight, as we can see, and of course that's got some puffiness under the eyes. I don't want to say bags under the eyes because it's hard to tell, but she's definitely got some puffiness there. We can't get rid of all of it, but we might want to reduce some of it just to make it look a little bit better. But anyway, before we do that, some of the other things that are distracting me first are the hairs. So just, again, she's got her hair pulled back, I believe in a ponytail. And these are just little hairs that are sticking off to the side. that are kind of taken away from that nice, clean, rounded look. And by the way, there's the ponytail right there. I can see parts of it. We'll take care of that in a second. But just getting some of these flyaway hairs out of the way. All right, so let's pause and look. All right, a couple questions here. Hey Terry, have you tried out Fuse CC? What do you think of it? I like it. Fuse CC is kind of nice. I think it will only get better. I haven't done a lot of work with it, but I've played with it. It's kind of cool. Yes, very nice makeup. I agree. Is this getting recorded? Yes, it's getting recorded. How do you decide when you might want to make these corrections on a separate layer? Oh God, I forgot. All right, so let me give you the layer talk. There are people that do retouching, and every single thing they do is on another layer. Let's stop and think about why we use layers in the first place. You use a layer so that if you ever need to come back and make another adjustment, you've got that safety net of the layer. So someone asked a good question. Well, you know, I noticed I wasn't using layers or hadn't used any yet. And so that means that I really am not working non-destructively or safely because I don't have that layer to always come back to. And the way I always explain it, especially for people that are new to watching me do retouching, I use layers, but I keep almost no layers, or very rarely do I ever keep layers in retouching. Graphic design, compositing, any kind of type, any kind of work like that, absolutely I'm keeping the layers. I'm making lots of layers, and you're going to see me make layers when we do the business card. So it just really depends. What I have found in my portrait retouching or creative retouching, now if we composite, yeah, we'll have a layer and we'll keep it. But if it's removing a hair, I am 99.9% sure I'm never going to come back and say, I wish that hair was still there. Or I need to bring that hair back and do something else with it. In that less than 1% case, oh well, I screwed up, I got to do it again from scratch. But that's less than 1%. That's maybe one image in an entire year that ever happens on. So I'm not saying don't use layers. I'm not saying you shouldn't use layers. Absolutely use layers, and if you're used to using layers, make all the layers you want. That's what they're for. But you won't see me use a lot of them because when I make adjustments that I'm sure of, then I don't need to ever go back to it. If I'm unsure or I'm doing it for someone and they may change their mind, that's when I'm going to use layers, because I may change my mind or the client may change their mind about something. So it just depends on the kind of work I'm doing, whether I'll use a layer or not. If you need layers, by all means use them. That's why we have them. That's why they're there. And you will see me use them today, just not for this stuff. That blemish that I removed earlier that I've already forgotten about, never going to ask for that back. So that's why I don't need the layer for that. Now, another reason why I don't worry about using layers for certain things so much is because a lot of people either don't realize or forget that it's there, is that you have, here, let me show you, for example. Let's say I make a mistake. Anyone can do it, including me. We're all human. So let's say I'm going to make a mistake on something. I'm going to accidentally do something to her thumb there with the healing brush. Make a mistake, and let's say I don't see it right away, and I go on and do other things. So I want to keep that. I want to, when I say keep that, these are adjustments I would want to keep. I wouldn't want to have to undo. And then I realize, oh crap, I did something to that thumb I didn't mean to do. Oh no, if I undo, or step back all the way back, then I'm going to lose all that other good stuff that I liked. So that's why a layer would have been nice. But I don't know how much of a layer would have saved me, because had I been doing all this on a layer, I'd still have that problem. It just would be on a layer now. So what I could do is, here, we'll hit the letter Y, which will take me to the history brush. And without undoing all that stuff I just did, I can just use the history brush to bring that one thing back in that I messed up, but still keep everything else. So that's another reason why I'm not so concerned about using layers for certain things as I am with other things. So hopefully that answers the question. Yes, we don't make mistakes. We make creative choices, not mistakes, or happy little accidents. So history brush is my kind of get out of jail free card in case I mess up something and see it later. And of course, if I made a layer for every little thing I did, that would be more distracting to me than not having all those layers for every little thing I did. But if you need layers, use them. I'm never going to tell you not to use them. You will never, ever, ever hear me say, no, don't use layers. I don't say those kinds of things. By all means, use them. That's what they're for. And like I said, there are certain things I can't imagine life without layers. Type, compositing, graphic design. I have usually lots of layers in those examples. Well, not lots, but several. Or enough. Now, keep in mind the history brush is only as good as many history states as you have set up in your preferences. So if you don't have enough history states, at some point you won't be able to go back in time. Or if you do something drastic to the photo, you may not be able to go back in time and use the history brush. So the history brush isn't a catch-all for everything. It's a catch-all for most things. Okay. Well, you don't use too many. 200 layers is not too many, especially if you know people like Burt Monroy, who uses literally thousands of layers. If you have 200 layers, that means that you have 100% complete flexibility to go back and change any aspect of your digital painting that you want. That's why we have layers. So I don't look at it as being too many, unless it's too many to the point to where you don't know what's on what and you can't keep track of it. So naming layers is a very important part of the process. Putting your layers in groups, which you'll see me do a little bit later today. Another important process, part of the process. So if you manage your layers properly, layers are awesome. But yeah, if you have too many and you don't know, if they're all layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, and you don't know what's on what, and that's making it worse, then yeah, layers are more of a problem than a benefit in that case. All right, so I want to reduce some of this. So one of the tips I would do, I could do it with a layer. I could do it with the fade feature. It's just really personal preference. You can use it any way you want. So let's do it with a layer. So just to show that I know what layers are and how to use them. All right, I'll duplicate the layer, or Command J to duplicate it. So I just temporarily made a copy of the image and put it on its own layer. Now I'm going to reduce all of that puffiness under her eye. I'm going to get rid of it all, which is unrealistic. So we'll go through and patch it all out on the duplicate layer. And we may have to blend it in some. And while that looks great, it may be a little unrealistic because her eyes are so tight. She would have some skin underneath, and the makeup's getting a little messed up here. That's what I meant by blending it back in. Okay, same thing under the other eye. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of it all. And we'll have to work on it and blend it back in, put it back together. Spots where the makeup is patchy and missing. just doing a little repair work here. Now, one of the reasons why you do this on another layer is because then you can use that layer to dial back in as much as you want to put back. Because we remove everything completely and then use the layer as kind of a restore control to restore it back. So I'll zoom out a little bit and see that actually, except for missing some of the makeup there, that actually looks pretty good. But again, we're going to put some of it back. Let's get some of the makeup back in this area. So we don't want to lose the gold. We don't want holes in the gold. So we'll put some of that gold back in. Now I could paint it back in or clone it back in, but patching it back in. And see, it's missing down here completely, so that's okay. All right, so let's zoom out a little bit. Now we got that on an extra layer. So that's before. See how bad that looks now? And that's after. See how much better that looks now? But we want to put some of it back. No, I'm not a makeup artist. And thanks Elsie Finch for being here, but no, that's not me. All right, so gone, or completely back, all the way gone. So now, using the opacity, it's like undo on a slider. So I can say, I want to undo some of what I just did, but not all of it. So I could bring it back and put 20% of it back by putting it back to 80. Or 50% of it back by putting it to 50. So I can dial back in as much of that as I want to keep. Maybe something right around there. Again, before, after, maybe no, put back a little bit more. Something like that would probably be a little bit more realistic. And again, that's to taste. So, now that layer's there. I can always go back and adjust that. I can come back tomorrow, save this as a Photoshop file, come back tomorrow, open it back up. That layer's there, continue to make that adjustment. Print it out, send it to a printer. Come back tomorrow or 2 days from now and say, no, it needs to be gone more or put back more. That's why we have that layer. But if I were completely done, then I would probably get rid of that layer. I don't need it anymore. I'm going to keep it for your sake. Let's go back to, and we'll call this, again, this is back to that naming thing. We'll call this puffy eye, because that's what it represents. All right, so that layer, now I know what that is. If I come back 2 days from now, which layer that is, we can go back to the background and keep working. All right, so just going in, making some more adjustments there. Again, ones that I'm not going to come back and say, wish I hadn't done. All right, a couple more with spot healing brush. All right, why am I not painting? I'm on the background, I'm on the healing brush. Oh, it is doing it. Okay, never mind. It just didn't look like it was doing anything. Oh, I know why. Because I'm doing it on that bottom layer, so that's being hidden by the one on top. Sorry. There we go. I forgot that that layer is not just the eyes. That's why I don't usually keep them. They become more of a distraction to my work than a helping thing. All right, but we'll keep that one for now. Okay, let's zoom out and see where we are. So we got rid of the tattoos, we got rid of the stray hairs, made the eyes a little less puffy. Now it's time to make the things stand out that need to stand out more, like the jewelry. Anytime anyone's wearing earrings, necklaces, rings, whatever it is they have on, I tend to want to make that stand out a little bit more with the sharpen tool. So we'll go to the sharpen tool now. And just sharpen that up a little bit more. Make that bling a little more blingy. And we'll just sharpen that up a little bit. And keeping in mind that that layer is at 68%, so we're only seeing 68% of it. So you can switch layers and do the other one as well. Now I could create a merge composite layer and do that as well, but it's really up to you guys what you want to do. All right, I like it. Now at this point, this could be my finished work, or I could put something over it, behind it, whatever. So one of the things I did in my other example was I went to Adobe Stock and I just searched for, I think my term was dripping gold, because I was like, I wanted gold to be dripping down from her fingers or something like that. That was the idea I had in my head at the time. I didn't really find what I wanted, but I did find some other things that I liked, like this gold glitter. So for example, if I pull this stock image over, I can put that on top, and we can scale this up. So we would absolutely keep this on another layer, by the way. And then I could play around with how I want to composite that on her, or how I would want that to look. So one of the first things I'll play around with in a case like this are blending modes, just to see what I get. So for example, I think I started off with darken, just to see what that would do. And of course it's putting it in weird places because it doesn't know what I want. But I could play around with some different ones and see if I like any better. Overlay is kind of funky, kind of cool. Actually, I kind of like overlay. Hard light maybe. Hard light can be fun, especially if we do hard light and we lower the opacity of that layer a little bit. And then if we size it or bring it down, we can have some fun with that. So for example, if we do this and scale it up some more. Then we're going to have some fun with that. And we can mask, of course, and remove it off areas we don't want it on. But I'm not quite sure if I'm happy with the look yet, so I'm going to keep going. That's hard light. Let's put the 100% back. Difference probably won't give me anything I like. Exclusion, subtract, divide, hue, and you can cycle through these with keyboard shortcuts, by the way, too. I even have a dial set up on my Wacom tablet to cycle through them as well. All right. The bokeh balls, yes. That's dope. You like that? Well, which one? I wasn't looking. Which one did you like? Screen. Now, screen can be interesting. So let's do screen. I haven't done this one yet. Let's lower the opacity just a little bit. And now, now you have a choice. Obviously, I don't want it on everything. So I can apply a mask and mask out areas where I don't want it. Or I can mask the whole thing and put it back in areas where I do want it. If that makes sense. You can do it either way. You like hard light? Up and down arrow keys, you think, yep. Yeah, maybe. No, sorry, wrong one. No, it's not up and down arrow keys. There's a keyboard command. I'd have to Google it. I never remembered off the top of my head. But there's a keyboard command that's more than one key that will let you cycle through them. And I can't remember which one of my dials I may have set up for that, if I did set one up on this display. But yeah, you can cycle through them. So let's go back to hard light, see what that looked like again, since that seemed to be a favorite. Yeah, hard light's similar to the one I already did, so I'm going to go back to... I agree with you, and that's why I did the first one, I think, with hard light. What was I on? I don't know, I think it was lighting or screen. Screen. Okay, so I lowered the opacity a little bit. And now, again, I have to decide which masking technique I want to try. So I'm going to try, now again, let me just show you the difference. If I click to add a mask, that puts the mask on the layer, and then I can just mask out whatever I want. I can just use a paintbrush and paint out what I don't want it on. Or, undo that mask, hold down your Option or Alt key and add the mask, and then that hides the whole thing. So now the whole thing is hidden behind a mask, and then you use a brush to brush it in where you want it. So it just depends on which technique you find easier for your work, for your image. So, for example, some people might like this technique better because they can see where they're brushing, as opposed to having to brush it away. So we switch to white paint with a brush on 100%. Make that brush a little bit bigger. And now we're adding it in to the areas I want it on. And see, that technique may take you more time, but it depends on how much of it you want it. So let's undo. Undo again, undo again. And we'll add the regular mask, and I think it's easier in this case to mask it away from the areas we don't want it on. So now we switch to black paint with the same paintbrush, and then we can say, well, I don't really want it in her mouth. So we can take it out of that. And that's why I said this method may be easier, because you can now decide by looking at the photo where you don't want it. So maybe I want it behind her hand, not in front of her hand, or not in front of all of her hand. So you might get something like that. And of course you can zoom in, use a smaller brush, get more detail, or get better detail, get closer. So around the edges I would definitely want to zoom in. I'm just doing it rough and quick for now. Okay. Oops, see, I don't like that. So we can also lower the opacity of the brush. So I could take it partially off that necklace. Make the brush a little smaller. So with a lower opacity brush, you're just reducing it, but it's still there. You're not completely getting rid of it. Okay, so that's one. Make the brush a little bit bigger, bring up the opacity a little bit more. I'm going to take some of it out of here. Alright, so now switch color, go back in and clean it back up where I got a little too close, and something like that. So switch again, take it off the sides here. Oops, don't like that actually. Okay, we should be back. And we should be back now. Sorry about that, guys. I just looked over and saw that you guys couldn't see anything anymore. So I stopped and started the stream back up. Okay, anyway, what you missed was me painting. And again, just experimenting with different levels of opacity on the brushing and different blending modes and blends on this. Now again, that's on a layer. If I don't like it, turn it back off, turn it on, delete the mask, do whatever I want to do with it to keep working on it. All right. Okay, so this is, and when you get into this part of the creative process, you could just nitpick it to death. You could start again. You could try different effects. You get the idea. I could spend the next 4 hours on this until I thought I liked it or didn't like it or wanted to try something different. But you got the idea now of how you can just add an element like a stock image to make something you started with your camera look a little better, look a little different than what you would have had just out of the camera. So again, I can always come back and work on that. We'll save it as is with the layers intact. How long have I been working with the Wacom Cintiq? I've been working with a Wacom, not this particular one, but I've been working with a Wacom Cintiq probably 6 years. Probably this one, maybe 3-4 years. So I've had Cintiqs for a while. All right, still saving. Yes, the Twitch gremlins can be real. Okay, so now when I close this after it's saved and head back to Lightroom, it puts that in the same collection right alongside the original. So this is where we started. If you're just getting here, this is the image we started with, right out of the camera, raw file, with some nice gold makeup on. I love the gold lipstick. That was done perfectly, by the way. And that's what we ended up with, at least for now. Again, this may or may not keep this one or not. The one I did earlier was that one. So using similar techniques to get that one done. I didn't correct for the puffiness, which I may now go do. Let me fix that now that I've seen the other one. So now keep in mind, we're in a collection, so I don't need both of these in the collection anymore. I have the one that we've already started working on. I can just delete the other one out of the collection. I still have it in the folder. This one is a PSD because I've already started working on it. So now when I tell it to edit, it's going to give me that choice I mentioned earlier. It's going to say, hey, do you want to edit a copy or do you want to edit the original? In this case, I want to edit the original because I want to go right back to that Photoshop document we worked on, or I worked on when you weren't watching. So that's going to open it up completely intact with everything that I did to it, including any layers that I did save, which I know there's at least one. See, I have a couple layers in here, one turned off. That was kind a thought process I was going through that I kind of changed my mind on, probably for good reason. And I'll show you another technique. Let's turn the gold off for a second. I'll show you another technique for the eyes that last time I used a layer to do it. This time I won't use a layer. I'll show you what you can achieve without having to do a layer. You can do a layer, of course, and you can use either way you want. Okay, so I'm on the original layer with this puffiness. We're just going to go ahead and do the same thing we did before. Use the patch tool, and we're just going to go ahead and patch it down. Now, the difference is when you use the patch tool, whether you use it on a different layer or not, as long as you still leave it selected, then what you can do is go up to the edit menu and you will have fade patch selection. The minute you deselect, that option's gone. You've lost it forever until you do your next patch. But as long as it's still selected, even if you hide the selection, you have this option for fade patch selection. And what that will do is give you the same effect that we had before. Remember on the layer how I could lower the opacity to bring some of it back? Well, it's doing the same thing. I can fade the patch to bring some of it back. I can bring that much of it back, that much more of it back, that little of it back. I can bring back as much or as little as I want. So I'll bring it back to, let's do 60%. So I got rid of 40% of the puffiness. And then I can deselect, and that would be it. Now, of course, I can keep patching and fix it up a little bit, but that's the difference between doing it on a separate layer versus not doing it on a separate layer. It's really, you have two choices. It's up to you. Still is going to require some cleanup from the standpoint of blending in the makeup, putting the gold back where I want it. Blending in or out any lines that I don't want. So that technique is still going to, oops, I did it the wrong way, sorry. That technique's still going to apply, whether you do it on a layer or not. And again, your layer is going to be your safety net. You can come back, and sometimes I do work late at night, and if I work late at night and then look at it the next morning, I was like, what was I thinking? Because you see all kinds of things you missed because you were tired. Your eyes were, just not as focused as you would be in the morning, at least for me. So a lot of times I may want to come back, and if I have a layer, then it's great. I can go back and keep adjusting, as opposed to having to start that particular process over again. So same thing. Now if I hide the selection, Command H, Control H on Windows, it just gets rid of the marching ants, but the fade is still there because it's still selected. So I can again fade back in as much of that as I want. All of it, some of it, consistently 60%, which is what I did the other one on. It's up to you. And then don't forget, you're still selected, so Command D or Control D to deselect. This one's going to be a little trickier. So in this case, what I'm going to do to try and get some gold in that area, I'm going to try a technique. Let's see, what do I want to do? I want to use my clone stamp tool. And your clone stamp tool has blending modes too. One of those blending modes is color. So I can say I just want to clone the color, not necessarily everything else. So let's try this. I just want to see if this will work. I'm going to get some of that gold up here. And of course I could fade it down if I wanted to, but I just want to see what that would do. Yeah, see, it's blending it in as a different color because it's trying to match the color that was there. So that's not going to work. So I can go back to normal, perhaps lower the opacity a little bit. Yeah, that's better. Just trying to put some gold back in that area. And that's another thing that the Cintiq or just a tablet in general lets me do. I can press just a little bit lighter to make a nice stroke without it, okay, pulling in too much, sorry, without it overdoing it, just with a lighter stroke. So literally painting that back in. or putting it in this eye, it wasn't there to begin with. So ever so slightly pressing down with the stylus. Something you could never do with a mouse. So anyone has ever asked, why do you want a tablet? This is why. This is an example right here. Because with a Wacom tablet, or any tablet for that matter, you have pressure sensitivity, so you can vary the amount of adjustment you're doing because you're not pressing down as hard. With a mouse, trackpad, or trackball, it's either on or off. So it's either you're pressing it down or you're not. There is no level of pressure. It's either a click on or a click off. All right, so we can turn that back on. And now we have a little bit less puffiness than what we had before. Okay, so I can, oh, by the way, I didn't do anything to this photo. So let's go ahead and take care of some of those stray hairs. All I did with this photo was literally open it up in Photoshop and put this second image on top of it. I didn't do any of the retouching that we did in the other one. So I didn't take care of any of these stray hairs. I just wanted to do that quick composite and put it together. Is the color a mix of hue and saturation? It's really, that's one way to look at it. The way I like to look at it is it's applying color to the mid-tone, but not the highlights and shadows. So, whichever way you want to say it. I don't know that I would necessarily call it a blend. Alright, so let's put the opacity back up on the clone stamp tool, and what I want to do with it is grab some of the solid black over here and just clone it in to get rid of this ponytail that's kind of distracting. I'll throw up some social media places if you want to see more of my work. You can head over to my YouTube channel. You can follow me on Twitter, follow me on, or like my page on Facebook, so forth and so on. Yeah, the fade command should be in an older version of Photoshop. It's not all that new of a feature. Just like fading filters. Fading under the edit menu is not new. Okay. Alright, we're going to save this. We're going to put both of these on my website. I'm going to show you how I do that process. And then we're going to do the business card in our last 49 minutes or so. Who's up next after me? So by the way, the Twitch channel here at Adobe, people are streaming all day, usually 12 or 14 hours a day. So we're doing them in two or 3 hour slots. So mine's a 2 hour slot Tuesdays and Fridays. And so I start the day, usually both days. Then there are people on after me. So who's up next? Any of the moderators know? Alright, so the saves happened. I can head back to Lightroom now. And now in Lightroom, I've got both of those finished, or at this point, finished images. So here's the one, and here's the other one. I would probably take it off the other one a little bit more, tone it down just a little bit more. Here, let me do one last thing real quick. On this other one, I'm just going to lower the opacity. No more brushing. Okay, Voodoo Val is up next on the twitch.tv/Adobe channel. All right, I just want to see one thing before we call it a day. Yeah, that's a little better. I think the opacity before was just a little too strong. Maybe a little more. Okay, I'm happy now. And that's why you have a layer, so you can always go back and make adjustments. Saving. The more layers you have, the longer it takes to save, by the way. Especially on a 36 megapixel file like this one. Saving. All right, saved, close, back to Lightroom. And now we have both images. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take both of those images that we worked on, or one that I worked on earlier and the one that I just finished working on. And I have a collection here called Recent Work. And it used to be my 24 most recently edited photos. Now it's going to be 26. I'm sorry, it's going to be 25. It used to be 24. And why did I change the number? Why do I have a limit in the first place? It's just an arbitrary number. It was 24 because I think some site I was on a long time ago could only have 24 images in a portfolio. So I was stuck to that number. But it forces me to remove old images from my site. So in this case, I moved it from 24 to 25 recently because the gallery on my site evenly displays 25 images with no extra space at the end. So I just upped the number to 25. So in this case, there are already 25 in there. I think one of them might be one of these already. So if I put both of these in, it'll either jump to 26 or 27. So I'm just going to drag those into the recent work collection, and it jumped to 26. So one of them's already there. So I'm going to go here, and now the two most recent are at the front. And that means I got to get rid of the oldest one because it's always the 25 most recent photos. Now that's putting it in a collection that is also synced to Lightroom Mobile. So now these are my portfolios, which means they're available on my iPad, my iPhone, the web. They're available anywhere that I have Lightroom Mobile, anywhere that I have my devices, or on any of my devices. Now that doesn't put it on my website. That just puts it on all my devices. Now I'm going to scroll down to another collection, same one, Recent Work, but it's in a different collection set called TTG CE4 Publisher. I'll explain what that is in a second. But let's take the photos and put them in that collection there as well. And same thing, one of them was already there, the other one wasn't. So I'm going to take the one that wasn't and move it up to the front. Since this is the most recent one we worked on, we'll put it right in the front. There we go. If I can drag. Oh, I'm dragging both of them, that's why. All right, so there we go. And then we'll take the last one and get rid of it. All right, so now, the reason I do it this way in Lightroom is because this is a plugin. It's a plugin called the TTG stands for the Turning Gate. So if we go to the web here real quick, we can go to theturninggate.net. And if we go to the turninggate.net, they make a platform called the CE4 Web Publishing Suite for Lightroom. So I bought this a long time ago. I'm not affiliated with these guys. I don't make a dime for saying this. It's just the way I've published to my website for years, using their plugins in Lightroom. So once you have their plugins set up, In this case, they've even converted it to be a publish module in Lightroom. So all I have to do, and here I'll show it to you on my website first. If we go to my website, which is right here, and we go to galleries, and we go to recent work, that one that we did earlier, or that I did earlier, is there, but the new one isn't, and the new version of that one isn't. So remember, this is the one with all the puffiness under the eye. We just fixed that. So what I want to do is go back to Lightroom and just simply hit publish. It says updating published collection. So it's taking these PSDs, raw files, whatever, and making them JPEGs, uploading them to my website, putting them in that gallery, removing the old one, doing everything that a published collection does. And so now if I go back and refresh that page, we'll have the 2 photos, including the one that's updated. So here's the one on my website right now at terrywhitephotography.com, and here's the other one. If I refresh that one, hopefully that one will update as well. Sometimes the cache is fighting against me, but that photo should be updated when you look at it. It's cached in my browser right now. But anyway, I've updated my website just that fast from Lightroom. Including any adjustments, any photos that I removed have been removed. And there's the new one. And notice another thing it does is it puts my watermark on it, because that's the way I set up that published collection. So that way I don't have to manually do it in Photoshop. I don't have to remember to do it every time I publish. It just does it as part of the published workflow. So I love being able to update my website, which is nothing to do with, it's not hosted by Adobe. It's not anything to do with Adobe at this point. It's a bluehost.com hosted website that is updated now from Lightroom. Yep, the turninggate.net. Okay. All right, so time to do the business card now. We got the website out of the way, and by the way, I can now that I put that image, the new one, in that collection, it's now in all my other social media published collections as well. So for example, if I want to publish it to my fan page, I would hit publish from here. I can publish it to my my regular recent work catalog on my my personal Facebook page. I can put it to SmugMug. I can put it in all the places where I have social media accounts set up and publish collections, even to Flickr if I choose to. Yep, there they are for Flickr as well. So it's now doing all of those publishings in the back. 500px, I think I have one for that too. So 500px, although 500px gives me an error sometimes, but it's set up for 500px as well. Yep, gives me an error. That plugin has been flaky lately. Okay, so next up, oh, Elsie Finch, great, you're headed away for a bit. Okay, well, we'll see you when you come back. All right, so next, let's just jump to the business card, which has nothing to do with any of these photos. So we're going to go back to, oh, actually I want to go back down. I just want to get back to where we were. That's where we were. Okay, so let's go to the website. I get my personal business cards printed at a company called moo.com. If you're a photographer, I highly recommend Moo, because they let you do something that, let's see if I got one handy here. They let you do something that a lot of sites don't let you do, and that is, I got a few of them here. They let you put different photos on the backs of your cards. So these are my cards, and they let me put different photos on each one. So that's one reason I like Moo. So I use them for my photography cards, but I also use them for what I call a social media card. So to get started, you would sign in. I'm going to sign in away from you guys, so you don't see any passwords or anything. Sign in. Okay, sign in. All right, I'm signed in. Let's pull that back. And you can browse the products. I can jump straight to business cards. The original business cards, super business cards, green business cards. I like the luxe ones. They're expensive. You don't have to go with these. You can go with any ones you want. But I just love the fact that they're thick and they have that color stripe integrated into the card. Like right down the middle, there's a red stripe. I just like those cards. Okay, but pick whatever you want or use whatever company you want. Don't really care. So what I'm going to do is, let's see. Yep. Okay, so if you can upload a completed design, a Photoshop, PSD, AI file, InDesign, JPEG, whatever. You can also say show specification guidelines. And this is what I love about it. You can download a template. So you can download a template for your favorite program. If you work in Photoshop, download the Photoshop template. You work in Illustrator, Illustrator template. InDesign, InDesign template. Download whatever you want. Since we've been doing everything in Photoshop today, I'm going to go ahead and do the Photoshop template, but I'm going to switch to the slightly weird move size. They have a standard business card, which is 2 by 3.5 or 3.5 by 2, and they have a move size, which is awkward, but it stands out in people's hands with a stack of business cards. So yours, the idea is yours stands out a little bit more. That's 3 by 3 and 2.16. All right, so I'm going to download the template for that. And it just downloads a PSD for you to open up. It's downloading now. All right, and I can just click and open up the template, and there it is. All right, so the template is just really a Photoshop file with layers, layer groups. It's showing you the guidelines. It's got all, the thing I like about it's got all the grid lines and everything there. The bleed area, the trim area, and the safe area. The safe area is where you want to keep everything that you're putting on the card, because that way you know something won't get cut off when they cut or trim the cards. The trim is the edge of the card. That's where they expect to make the cut. So if you want color to go all the way to the edge of the card, you technically put it in the bleed area. So that way you're not having to worry about it not being all the way to the edge or not. So that way you put it over the edge, so when they cut the card, they're cutting right through the color, which is fine. Or design or logo or picture or whatever it is. They give you a layer to start working on, so you can design here, or any layers above that are fine. And you can create as many layers as you want, because you're going to send them either a PSD, an InDesign file, a JPEG, or whatever. I just send them normally JPEGs or PNG files, and it works out fine. All right, so you can turn all of that off and just work on the blank card, or keep it on, or turn pieces of it off. So you can turn that off, for example. And these are overlays over the top of what you're doing, so they're transparent. So for example, one of the things I like to do is turn the ruler on. And I just hit Command R, by the way, to turn the ruler on. And you can right click the ruler to switch it to whatever you want. So I just right clicked, I can switch it to inches. I can switch it to pixels, points, whatever I like to work in. So we'll see what the document size is. So I'm going to go to image size. The image size is 1038 pixels wide. So I like to do the math of what would that be halfway. So 1038 divided by 2. 1038 divided by 2 equals 519. All right, so 519 would be the middle of the card that way. So I'm just going to drag this over to 519, and that will snap to the middle anyway. Well, cool. Glad you liked the information. Go have a great dinner. Yeah, NFC cars look cool too. So Moo's a innovative, great company. All right, so anyway, I got that guideline now right in the middle, and what I want to do is on a new layer, so I'm just going to make a new layer above the design area. I'm going to grab a rectangular marquee tool, and I'm just going to go ahead and drag out a big rectangle up to the halfway point, and I'm going to fill that rectangle with black. Now, keeping in mind, I'm designing this from a design I had in my head. So this has nothing, you can make this card anything you want it to be. I'm just showing you my thought process for this design. So Option Delete will make that black. And again, it filled that entire half of the layer with black. If I turn off all the guide stuff, that's what the card looks like right now. And it's kind of tricky because it doesn't look like it's the halfway point unless you put the guides and everything back on. So it kind of looks a little weird. Okay, so next, I want to go ahead and pull out my logo. So I could file place. I could open it up in another document and copy and paste it. I could drag it over if it was in another document, open in a layer. But what I tend to love to do now is put things in libraries. So I have a library called, affectionately, Terry's Library. And in Terry's Library, I've got colors, I've got images, brushes, logos, and if we scroll down far enough and show the remaining, somewhere down here is my TW logo. So I'm just going to drag that right over, and it comes over nice and big. We're going to go ahead and scale it down, obviously, and size it to your taste. That keeps it right in the middle. I'll move it over to the right a little bit more and size it down maybe a little bit more as well. Now, since my logo actually has my name on it, I'm not going to put my name on the right hand side of the card. And again, that's what it looks like with the guides. Okay, so next, let me do this. Next, what I want to put in are some social media logos, because again, this is a social media card. In my actual design that I submitted, I had, I think, my 5 favorite social media sites, phone number, address, and email. It was an even number of things. So 5, phone number, address, email. Yeah, it was 8 things. So eight icons is what I really ended up with. Now, let's put the icons in first, and then we'll deal with the information going next to them. All right, so first and foremost, I'm going to pull out another guide, just dragging it from the ruler. And this is all, I'm not mathematically doing this, I'm just doing it to my eye. Pull that one over, and I'll pull over one more. I want the icon to be no bigger than the width between these two guides. Something like that. Okay, so now where do I get the icons from? You guessed it, a library. I have a library called Icons. Where did these icons come from? Various sources. Here, let me show the remaining 22. Some of them came from Adobe Stock. Some of them came from the marketplace. Some of them came from stock images that I had before. Some of them I made. So they came from different places. For example, if you wanted to get ones for free, let's see if we go to Assets. We go to Market in Creative Cloud, and we do a search, and we do social media icon. You'll see you get a bunch. You get ones that come up that you can use, and these are free to download. There's a whole sheet of them. These are free for you to download and use. Anything in the market is free. It's not like Adobe Stock where you actually have to buy a license for it. So a lot of the ones I use came from here. So there's Facebook and Twitter and Google Plus and YouTube and different versions of them. And the way these work is you sync them to a library. That's the easiest way to get to them. So like, for example, I kind of like that Instagram one. I can sync that to my icons library. And my icons library is now updating, and here it comes. That one's cool for sharing. That's a tip. That's the universal share icon now. And notice it's also coming in with no background, so that makes it really easy to use. So, just goes on and on and on. These are, and there's one for Behance, which is kind of cool. I should do more on Behance. I just don't. Just wish I did, but I don't. Maybe I'll post these new photos over to my Behance page. So, it just keeps going. There's tons and tons of great icons, and again, those are all free. So that's where I got a lot of them from, was just getting them from the market. Okay, next. So let's do the first one that I want to start with. The first one I want to start with, I may not have yet. Let's see if it's in here. I may not have one, or maybe I do. I can't remember. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, I don't see the one I really want to go with, so we'll do something different. Let me see what these are. These need to be renamed, obviously. I don't know what they are. So let me pull one of these over. Ah, yeah, okay, so these are the ones I want. They just need to be renamed. Okay, so that one, I'm going to escape out of it. Let's rename this. Let's rename these so I know what they are. This is web icon. And what's this one? Mail, email. Okay, so I do have them. That's why naming's important. Email icon. And what's this one? Location. So I'm just dragging it over and hitting escape because I don't want to use it yet. Rename. Location icon. And the reason that these don't have names is because these are ones that I did in Illustrator. And this one is phone. Okay, good. Rename phone icon. Okay. All right, so now that I have all my various icons that I'm going to want to use, let's start with phone. So I'm just going to pull the phone one over. It comes in nice and large, the original vector size that it was. And I can, of course, put it, align it to a guide, like that. Then I'm going to hold down the Shift key and just scale it to fit to the next guide. So that will keep it nice and small. There we go. And then lock it in. All right, great. So the phone number is going to go next to that. And of course, that's a layer. You can always move it around, put it wherever you want, move it up a little bit, because again, as long as we're under that dash line, we're in the safe area. Okay, so next one, I want phone, web, phone, email, web, address, something like that. So let's do phone, let's do email icon next. Same thing. Scale it down. Don't worry about the spacing yet. Once we get them all on the page, we'll evenly space them out. I'm not worried about that just yet. Email, let's do web. See, this is where layers will come in extremely handy, so that you have the ability to move all this stuff around. This is one I definitely love, layers. Okay, let's see, we did phone, email, web. Now I'm going to start from the bottom up because I don't remember if I want to put address on this one or not. So let's start from the bottom up. I'll go all the way down to my last one, which is going to be Periscope. Since these came from a different source, they're a different size. And there's a problem with some of these icons we're going to have to fix. You'll see it in a minute. Did I line that one up right? There we go. So we got Periscope. I want my YouTube for sure. Facebook for sure. Instagram for sure, and Twitter for sure. So let's do Instagram next. Now, in the case of, what am I making? I'm making a business card, social media business card. So in the case of where we're in a situation where I moved it up so it'd be out of the way so I could scale it down, but now I can't reach that corner handle. Here's a trick. Whenever the handles that you're trying to scale are off screen, just hit on Mac Command 0, PC Control 0. That will zoom the image down to where you can always see the handles. All right, so hold down the Shift key. And then I can move it up. And again, I'm not worried about spacing them out. I will later. And let's see, we got that one. We need YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Okay, good. So here comes YouTube. Same thing, I can't see that top handle anymore. No problem, Command 0. That will always zoom it down so I can see it. And then I can locked in, or I might have to zoom it up to be able to do that. Ooh, down, down, down. There we go. And let's see, we get Facebook in there. Scale Facebook down. And Twitter. Now, here's the problem. Since I was guessing at the amount of space I would need, I didn't guess right. I guessed wrong. The icons are too big, and I even need to make room for one more. And I'm already maxed out from top to bottom. So that means that all of the icons need to get smaller so that I can make room for another one. And even right now, they still have to get smaller, even if this was all I needed to space them out properly. So what we can do, I don't have to do them one by one. I can select all, just hold on my Shift key, starting with the top one in the layer all the way down to the last one in the layers. Command T or Control T on Windows, and that will let me scale them all. Oops, sorry. There we go. That should let me scale them all uniformly. All right, maybe something like that would give me plenty of room. Don't worry how they look right now. They will look better. Or you could just give yourself like a little bit more room for the one you know you need to add, and then you'll space them out. Okay, so see how they all jump back out to nice and smooth. Oh, forgot to do one thing. Hang on. I shouldn't have deselected. Hold on for a second. Let's scale them back down again. This time I'm not going to deselect because hopefully what this will let me do is pull out a guide and line it up to that spot. Okay, so now the next one, I don't have to worry about it. Okay, so now I can put the one in I'm missing. So let's start off by making room for it. So I want to start with phone, email, and web and move those up. So if you hold on your Shift key, you can select multiple layers in the layers panel, use your move tool, and move just those layers without having to group them together or do anything like that. All right, so now I've made room for the one icon I need. I need to go find it. It's the location icon. We'll drag that one in. And we'll scale that up as well, or down, I should say. And we'll make that the perfect size. There we go. All right, so now the problem is I got them all in, but they're all not spaced properly. Some are tight next to each other, some are too far away, so forth and so on. So first thing I want to do before I do the spacing is I want to get them off that bottom guideline. Let's move them up a little bit. Okay, now I've got them top and bottom where I want them to be, but not spaced in between. So next thing we'll do is we'll grab, again, starting with the first one all the way to the last one, get them all selected, and then what you can do is go to your layer menu. You've got align and distribute right here in the layer menu. So we're going to say not align, we want to distribute the space from their vertical centers. This will perfectly space them all out to be the same, just in that one fatal swoop. All right, someone just got here and they're asking, how do you get guidelines? So you get your guidelines by, first of all, bringing up your rulers. So Command R on Mac, Control R on Windows. That will bring up the vertical and horizontal rulers. Then you can pull down or pull out guides from those rulers. Let's see, hang on, this worked like, oops, sorry, hang on, I did something wrong. All right, so you can move the guides around once they're there. You can move them back up to the ruler if you don't need them anymore, and then they're gone. So I got rid of the extra one I don't need anymore. This is like magic. Yeah, I love distribute space, especially. That is like magic to me. Okay, so now that I've got the spacing of the icons right, or at least even, the next thing I want to do is now start putting in some of the information. So I'm going to go to my type tool or text tool. Oh, wait, one more thing. You have all these guides that came from the template in a layer group. So that's a group called Artwork Guides. I want to make another group, and you'll see why in a minute. As a matter of fact, maybe I'll do it now. I want to make another group of everything else that's not the guides, not the part of the template. So I'm going to make a layer group of all of this stuff. So from the you can design here all the way up. So let's hold down the Shift key. Let's go all the way up to everything I added except that one layer that they already had there. And I'm going to just select them all and then hit create a new group. Now we'll automatically put them in a new group called Group 1. I'm going to rename that group TW Business or Social Card. All right, so that's the name of the group, and all the layers are in that group now that I made. And I'm going to save the document now because right now we're still working in the template. I'm going to save it as a new document somewhere else on my drive. So let's do a save as, not a save because we don't want to overwrite the template. Save as, and we'll save it to the desktop, and we'll make a new folder called Business Cards just so it's neat. Like we may have lost the stream. I'll give it 5 seconds to come back. And it didn't come back yet. All right, I'm going to stop the stream and start it again. I'm afraid to say anything. Is it going to stay back this time? All right. So guys, just got like literally 10 minutes left. So let's go ahead and hopefully wrap this up. And Twitch hopefully will Twitch will stay with us just long enough for me to finish. So all I did was save the document. I'm just going to grab my type tool. I'm just going to click relatively close to one of the ones we did. Here, let me make it left justified. We'll click next to the phone number. And notice your cursor could be any size. It could be totally too big, too small, whatever. Obviously, that's way too big type. So let me go ahead and just reduce the point size down quite a bit. And now let me go ahead and start typing in a made up phone number. So we'll do plus 1.404.555.1212. So let's say that was going to be the number I wanted. Obviously, I might want to make a font change. Let's go grab a nice font. Now in the font menu, I can choose things like sans serif. So I can look through all my sans serif fonts. I can use the ones on Typekit. So that way I'm looking at fonts that any of you as Creative Cloud members would also be able to use. Museo Sans looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and use that one. And again, I might want to bring that point size down just a little bit more. I'm doing this visually, not so much mathematically. All right, so now, obviously when you hit return to type in your next thing, it's not going to be properly spaced. So when I hit return, it's going to be wherever the leading was that I last left off on. So let's go ahead and choose that. We're going to set it back to auto for now. Actually, I need to highlight the whole thing and set it to auto. So let's set all of this back to the defaults. Auto, there we go. So now when I hit return, it's going to put it right under it. And I'm going to say my email is terry@thatemail.com, which doesn't exist. Next, terrywhite.com, that would be my address. Next, my location is 123 Anywhere Street, Atlanta, Georgia 30303. All right, next is Twitter, which is @TerryLWhite. Next is Facebook, which is facebook.com/TerryWhiteFans. Next is YouTube, which is terrywhite.tv. Next is Instagram, which is @TerryLeeWhite, because the other ones were taken. And lastly is Periscope, which is @TerryLWhite again. Okay, so now I need to make the spacing of this stuff match up with the spacing of the icons. So we select all, Command A, Control A on Windows, and here's a keyboard shortcut that adjusts the leading, which is the space between the lines. Hold down your Option or Alt key and your down arrow. Now it's going to jump to something weird first, like that, and then just use your up arrow to adjust. Something like that, maybe. That looks good. Okay. Now, what if I want to, of course, these are all layers, so you can keep making adjustments. I can pick that type up, move it closer to the icons, whatever I need to do. I can see it without the guidelines. But now I want to see the file, or maybe I want to send the file to someone to have them look at it, or maybe I want to upload it to Moo. Maybe I want to get this file ready to go. One of my favorite features in Photoshop is the image or generator, is what it's called, Photoshop generator. So the way generator works, first and foremost, let's put the text we just did in that social group, is based on the way you name your layers or groups, it can generate files. So for example, if I want this set of layers to ultimately turn into a PNG, a JPEG, or whatever, then all I have to do is just rename that layer .png. Now, nothing's going to happen yet because I haven't turned the feature on. All I did was rename a layer, and it doesn't care what I rename that layer. All I have to do now is just go under the File menu, come down to Generate, and turn on Image Assets. As soon as you choose that, it doesn't do anything but check it. So now when I go back to it, it's now checked. And what that means is now any changes you make, move the layer, delete a layer, add a layer, turn a layer on, turn a layer off, whatever you want to do, change the type, whatever you want to do, change the font, it will keep making a new copy of it will keep replacing and making a new version of your file as a PNG. Where does it put it? Remember when we saved that out, or I saved that PSD out to the desktop here? Let's go find it. Desktop, business cards, social. There's the PSD. There's the file I originally saved, but it made this folder called Terry White Social Card Assets, and that's where it's putting your PNG or anything else you do. Now there's an error because of some of the ways that the layers are named inside that. But what it did was it made the file, and there's the ping file. So let's say I go back and change the address to 456. All I have to do is go back here, type, change that to 456, space. As soon as I lock that in, it's made a new ping file right off the bat. Now it's 456. So all I have to do is just keep making changes to my card, and I will always have a ping file that's exported, that's ready to go, or JPEG, or whatever you name your layer as, that I can send to someone, or upload to Moo, or upload to wherever I want to upload it to. So I love that feature, because when I was creating this card, or version of this card, I was emailing back and forth to a friend of mine and having him look at it. He's a designer. He does way more design than I do. So he made some suggestions on changes. One of the suggestions he made, let's see if we can get it done in 4 minutes. And I knew it, but I didn't really notice it right away. Notice how because remember, these icons came from different places. So see how some icons have the shadow? Like these 4 have a shadow on them, but the other ones don't. He caught me on that and said, hey, you got to add shadows to the other ones or take the shadows off the other ones. I was like, okay, because I didn't create any of these, so I'd have to go make shadows. So for example, for the periscope icon, it doesn't have one. We'll do one, process is the same for all the rest. Create a new layer, and on that empty layer above periscope, we'll zoom in, and I only got like 3 minutes left. Zoom in, and all I'm going to do is use my, let's see here if I have it, my selection tools. There we are. I'm going to use my polygon lasso tool. So I'm just going to come, and again, remember I'm on a layer, so I can do this from this layer. I'm going to click here, go out to here, kind of at the same angle as the one above it, come out here, maybe right about there, come over there, and then across. And all I did was make a selection on that layer. Now I can fill that selection with black. Option backspace or delete. So I've got a black layer on top of the periscope logo. Now I'm just going to lower the opacity, kind of make it look like a shadow. And then I'm going to take the shape of the periscope icon, just command click to get that shape. And I'm just going to add a mask for my new layer to mask it out in that exact shape. So that's how I got the shape perfectly rounded on the shadow. And then all I did on that, while I'm on that mask, is mask out the rest of the logo. Zoom in. And I'm on some of them I made a selection, on some of them I just brushed it away, just depending on what was easier. So we'll grab our paintbrush or brush tool, make sure the opacity is back up to 100. Make sure the brush is a lot smaller, and make sure we're painting with white in this case. No, black? Yes, black. Okay, sorry, black. And then we can just go ahead and mask out the shadow where we don't want it. And because that's a layer, if I don't like the opacity or any of the masking, I can always come back and redo it. So, for example, it's still too dark, so I can just lower the opacity of that. And because it's in that layer group, it's still making a new card for me out on the desktop. So there it is with the shadow. All right. So Voodoo Val is up next. I've got like literally 1 minute left in my stream. We're going to pass it over to Voodoo Val. I want to thank you guys for watching. The next stream is in less than 60 seconds, so that's when you'll see the next one. My next one is next Tuesday.